encountered some really difficult times. They have done so my whole life. I'm separated from my family and I live here by myself. I live in Bristol, and I genuinely believe that Bristol is a very ethical place. This is the most live-streamed genocide that we've ever seen. Every day I see my people shattered to pieces. It's absolutely horrible. As the council, you must have something to do with the decisions that even pension fund does, and I urge you to use whatever is in your power to ensure that those investments are done into companies that are ethical and don't violate human rights. I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
Questions received have been published on the website and are shared on the screen now. 62 questions were received from members of the public, and 25 of those have indicated they wish to attend. We will try to cover as many questions as possible in the 15 minutes available. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, so we ask for your patience as we run through the questions. And please remember, everyone will get a written response to their questions as well. As with the statements, I will be moving around in order to ensure as many different subjects as possible are heard. When I call on you, your question will be displayed on the screen. The leader or relevant chair will reply verbally to your question. Following the reply, you will be invited to ask supplementary questions. Please remember, you have a maximum of 2. So, first is public question number 1 from Carolyn and Derek Tansel. Carolyn and Derek Tansel here. Again, this is a question on bandrails on the Downs, and it's to Councillor Williams. Councillor Williams, if you'd like to give your response, please, and then we can have a supplementary.
Lord Mayor, I think the same issue has happened again. It's happened at the last full council. The question's actually been assigned to Councillor Parsons as chair, but how is he twisted?
Councillor Parsons, would you like to answer that question?
That's right. For the avoidance of doubt, questions regarding vehicle dwellers in the city, I'll be answering those today. Thank you very much for your question. So this is about vehicle dwellers on the Downs. When are the council going to take action? I mean, I think it's important to kind of put this in context to start off with. So now we have over 600 vehicles all across Bristol being lived in. And this is a growing challenge for the city. Not only is it a challenge for settled residents, housed residents in the city, and for our streets and green spaces, but also so this is something that I and my committee have taken very seriously right from the start of our new administration. And one of our first actions was I asked that our policy on vehicle dwellers be reviewed, and that we bring actions forwards that can really address this very large challenge that we now have. And that work has begun. Officers have been working on a range of proposals, and most recently last week we held a round table which I and Councillor Williams convened with officers from various different services and our partner agencies across the city. That will be coming to my committee early next year, where we will be discussing the actions that we're going to be taking. We know, I think, given the very large increase in the numbers of people living in vehicles, which is a direct consequence of the housing crisis, that our current approach is not sustainable, and we do need to review it. Thank you for your question.
You can ask one supplementary.
I would like to say that...
Could you hold the microphone a bit closer to you? Thank you.
I would like to say that the vans, etc. in Savile Road, that must surely be unlawful, because if you park an ordinary car there, you are more than 5 hours, you are charged, whereas all the other vans, etc. should not be there.
Yeah. It's their home.
Yeah, so I understand there are some complexities around the law on what can and cannot be enforced through traffic and parking regulations. But my colleagues on the Transport and Connectivity Committee are reviewing our whole policy around parking on and around the Downs at the moment. And there's going to be work coming forwards in the new year, I understand, about that.
Thank you very much. So next I'd like to take public question number 7 from Lana again. This is a question on the Avon Pension Fund to Councillor Dyer. Councillor Dyer, would you like to respond? And then the member of the public can have a supplementary.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, the Council's ethical and equitable investment policy sets out the Council's investment principles, and decisions are made in accordance with that policy. Administered by the pension fund separately from the Council's funding investments. However, we do have representation on that pension fund in the form of Councillor Fiance. I believe Councillor Fiance has been meeting with your speech earlier on, and I did write this before, but I think you just strengthened what I said here, was that anyone who has watched the terrible scenes in Palestine cannot be failed to be moved and must take whatever action they can to try and prevent that happening even further. I mean, sadly, Palestine is not the only place where we are seeing people being killed and people being slaughtered. In the area we and other authorities make investment decisions, we can seek to influence their investment decisions, and we can pass petitions. In the end, however, it is up to national governments, and national governments need to step to the fore and put an end to what's happening in Palestine immediately. I don't know if you realised my comment earlier on. We now know that what you are saying, your protests that you come out on a regular basis to do time after time, appear to be finally having an impact on the pension fund. I guess we'll find out when they have the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Did you have a supplementary question you'd like to ask?
Yes, please. I was just wondering whether you believe that passing a divestment motion would help pressure the Avon Pension Fund to stop investing in arms companies, given Bristol's significant contribution to the fund.
I think that any public pressure will have some influence. It's impossible for me to say how much, but staying silent is not an option either. The more we put pressure on by having public statements, having the marches we've had out on a regular basis here in Bristol and elsewhere right across the country, it must have an influence. People have to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. So next I'd like to take public question number 13 from Melissa Topping. Is Melissa here? Yeah, of sorry. And this is on the East Bristol Liveable neighbourhood. And you had 3 questions for Councillor Plowden. Councillor Plowden, do you want to take them in turn? Or together?
I'm going to just speak to the questions, but before I do, Lord Mayor, I think we've seen an incredible number of statements today at the public forum. I think it's a great thing to see so much public engagement in local democracy. It's maybe because the centre of power has moved from upstairs, the Mayor's office, actually into this very chamber, which I think is a really good thing. I think, given the volume of positive and negative statements we've had on the East Bristol Liveable neighbourhood, we really are demonstrating the word of the year, as announced yesterday by Miriam Webster, which is polarisation. And I really hope that we can move to a situation where we are listening to one another, we're willing to compromise, engage in debate, look at the evidence, and make really good public policy on the back of that. Thank you. So, turning to the questions, a proposal to implement liveable neighbourhoods in Bristol came out of the Citizens' Assembly, a representative group of Bristol residents. It's clear that there's a significant number of local residents across the scheme who are strongly in favour of the trial scheme being implemented, as well as many who are opposed. The project engaged with the community since January 2022 to develop proposals for the first liveable neighbourhood scheme. The process involved multiple stages of engagement to shape the scheme before formal consultation on the proposed trial scheme. The decision to propose with the trial scheme was based on a thorough evaluation of its potential benefits and impacts, including the aims to improve air quality, road safety and health outcomes. Initial implementation of the scheme is due to be completed by January 2025. The Council will then monitor the scheme for 6 months before re-engaging with the community regarding a proposed permanent scheme. It's going ahead because the evidence from across the country shows delivering lower traffic streets is beneficial to all and improves the health of the general population.
Thank you very much. Miss, you've got 2 supplementary questions should you wish to take them.
I'd like to know why you're continuing regardless. I'd like to know why you're continuing regardless, despite the human daily lives.
We're continuing because we want to see how this pans out over the next 6 months. Work with the community to listen, to see how it's working, and then to make decisions about how to make this permanent. But I'm also bringing forward proposals over the next month or so to make sure that we're proactive as we possibly can.
People are dying. You haven't been listening to
Minister, you can ask. Well, let's move on. So the next question is police officers and the spending. They're both for Councillor Bowden. Is Jamie here, by the way? One.
I think when any reserve matters comes in, I can't speak to the Green Party, I'm not a Green member, but ultimately any reserve matters application that comes in will be reviewed by the planning department, and if it comes to a committee, it will be up to committee members to review the application against all local and national policies and to make a decision based on that. I think, for the sake of context, there's a couple of other things I want to add in here. First is the history of the site, in as far as the previous administration sold some of the land to Homes England. Homes England put in an application that was proposed in the local plan. It has been taken out of the local plan that was submitted to the planning inspectorate. So as things stand, the council's position is that we do not want to build on that land, and that we want to take that allocation in the local plan will not proceed. We do, however, have a process to go through with the planning inspectors, where the local plan is subject to public hearings and examination by the inspectors, and this is likely to be one of the areas that they will be pushing for further explanation and discussion on, and we will be defending that position. The other thing to say is, of course, there has been outline permission granted by the planning inspector, so the principle of development on that land has been agreed by government agency, and if it is to proceed, it will be preceded by a government body. So there is an aspect here where what happens is to some extent outside our control, but the council's position is that we do not want to build on that land, and that will be the decision we're defending at the local plan as it goes through examination.
You can ask a supplementary if you wish.
Thank you. Thank you. It was good and reassuring to hear that the council doesn't support the idea of development on the land. We are trying to engage in conversations with our local MP, because we do realise that with it being at Homes England level and the planning inspector, that does kind of take it to a higher level. So I guess our question is, can we rely, as you said, that if at any point a building contractor does approach with the reserved matters, that the application will be given very thorough and wholehearted scrutiny, given the sensitivity and the huge importance of the land that is so badly needed to be kept as a natural habitat? Thank you.
I can't make the decisions, but I can assure you that the planning team and I'm sure any committee, as and when any potential application came to committee, will be thoroughly examined and reviewed in the light of, obviously in the light of the circumstances, the history and the public interest.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll take one more public question, then we'll have to move on, I'm afraid. So is David Redwell here? Yeah. So David, can we take your public question number 61? And this is a question for Councillor Plowden, I believe. Councillor Plowden, do you have a response?
The City Council and WEC have met with bus operators, including First, to discuss opportunities to enhance the bus network, including in the south and east of Bristol. The City Council welcomes the newly announced additional bus service improvement fund pot for the West of England region and looks forward to engaging with the combined authority how this can be used to make further improvements in the bus network.
David, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, my supplementary is we still don't have a set fare. I believe it's now the 18th of this month. We're going to discuss what we put in place for the £3 cap, maybe around 240 now, as you'll see. But I am concerned that we have a 240 commercial cap and a £2 supported cap for fares. So stagecoach buses, some of them will be £2, big loan will be £2, first buses will be £240. And ask again to go away and look at this. We need an easy, fair scale in the city for people to understand travel to work, school, education, leisure, and tourism and hospitals. So that can be looked at.
I agree with you, but I don't think there was a question in there.
I think the question is there more, the question was simply, is there more discussion with the Mayor about setting some reasonable fares when he makes that decision with Palladium on the 18th of this month, and the fares are understandable to the travelling public in Bristol.
As you may know, Dave, the Enhanced Partnership meeting, which is sitting to look at the fare structure, has been cancelled 3 times already. I'm not entirely clear about what the Metro Mayor is doing, and I'm afraid I can't speak for him, and I'm sad about that, because I do think that we should be collaborating across the region in the interests of the travelling public. And I don't.
I've written replies to all of your questions, so apologies if you didn't have time to speak your statements or questions today. I'd like to inform members of the public that the adjournment for today's meeting is expected at 3:30. I invite you to stay if you'd like to hear the other agenda items. If not, please leave as quietly as possible. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 7 is petitions notified by councillors. There has been one council petition received in this meeting, and councillors are invited to speak for 1 minute.
So to intervening other than citizens, to intervening other than a process that is really slow and isn't very guaranteed. So more enforcement for illegal parking, more access to things like planters. Planters and bollards, and also making sure that our area committees actually deliver stuff for our neighbourhoods directly, more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, agenda item 8 is the petition debate of Halt the East Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood Scheme. This petition has reached the 3,500 signature threshold to qualify for a full council debate, and 20 minutes is the maximum time allowed for this item. The petition organiser will be permitted up to 5 minutes to present the petition and its objectives. We will then proceed to the council debate. I will also ask the leader or relevant policy committee chair to respond at the end of the debate. As a reminder, this is not an interactive discussion involving the public. The issues raised in the petition and the comments of members during the debate will be referred to the leader and relevant policy committee chair for a response. So firstly, if I could ask Melissa Topping to present the petition, please. Melissa, you've got a maximum 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa and I'm a resident of Redfield. I'm before you today not only as an individual, but as a representative of countless others who have been deeply affected by the start of the UDLM implementation. As a disabled resident, I rely on vehicle accessible routes to get to essential services like my GP surgery and home. The current plans will make this nearly impossible. The lack of accessible alternative routes will force me to cancel crucial appointments, leaving my health and well-being compromised. It will also stop me going experience. This is a common struggle for many disabled individuals in our community. This ill-conceived project being imposed upon our community without proper consultation is wreaking havoc on our lives and livelihoods, even before full implementation has occurred. We, the undersigned, are united in our opposition to this scheme. We are residents, business owners, disabled, elderly and vulnerable community members who have been and will be directly impacted by this misguided decision. The scheme's devastating consequences are clear. Unjustified traffic chaos. The scheme has created gridlock on our roads, making it difficult for residents to get to work, school and essential appointments. This has led to increased stress, frustration and wasted time. Thankfully, no loss of life as yet. The economic ruin for local businesses. Our local businesses, the backbone of our community, they're suffering. They have a reduced foot traffic already. Difficulty with deliveries and increased operating costs are threatening their survival. Health and safety risks have been increased, with traffic congestion has led to higher levels of air pollution, endangering the health of our residents, particularly children and the elderly, with safety risks at night increasing. Our community voices have been ignored. The Council has failed to listen to the concerns of the community. Despite overwhelming opposition, they have pushed ahead with this harmful scheme, disregarding the needs of the people. Rising crime is inevitable in dead ends throughout the scheme. The scheme is a colossal waste of public funds, money that could be better spent on improving public transport, cycling infrastructure or supporting local businesses is being squandered on a project that is causing more harm than good. It is cutting off support networks to the most vulnerable, making it difficult for friends and family to visit. Their journeys are now travelled in time, so their time is now being spent in traffic instead. Beyond the impact on individuals, the closure has also had devastating effects on local businesses. Shops and restaurants, the lifeblood of our community, are suffering from significant decline in foot traffic and deliveries. This not only threatens their livelihoods, but also diminishes the vibrant character of our neighbourhood. The loss of accessibility will also hinder those essential services like deliveries. Many residents, especially the elderly and those with disabilities, rely on home deliveries for groceries and medications. The current situation will make it very difficult, if not impossible, for these vital supplies to reach those that need them. I urge you to consider the far-reaching consequences of this situation. The impact on accessibility, local businesses and essential services is profound. We need immediate action to restore access and support our community. We demand that Bristol City Council immediately halt this scheme and reconsider their approach. We need solutions that truly improve our community, not ones that create more problems. We call for a comprehensive review of the scheme with meaningful consultation involving all stakeholders along with all emergency crews, local. We need a plan that prioritises the needs of our community and supports sustainable, equitable development. We urge you to protect our community. I implore you, as our councillors, to please stand for your constituents. Together, we can demand a solution that prioritises the needs of our community, especially those who are most vulnerable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So now we'll move to the councillor debate. I understand some councillors will be making maiden speeches today, so good luck with those. So first I'd like to call upon Councillor Abby Finch to speak on behalf of the Green Group. And you've got 3 minutes, Councillor Finch.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you also to everyone involved in bringing this petition to us today, and everyone who wrote in with statements and questions. It takes bravery, especially when this is something that affects people in such personal ways. What seems clear to me from reading this petition, as well as the public forum statements, both against and in favour of this scheme, is that there is a general need for less traffic congestion, reduced air pollution, thriving local businesses, safer roads for everyone, better public transport, and a council that acts with transparency and listens to the communities we serve. I think often these underlying shared needs can be lost in an era of polarising narratives. We often dig our heels in to protect and defend our position, rather than really listen to what those who disagree with us are saying. So I ask all councillors, as well as everyone who lives, works or travels through the East Bristol Liveable neighbourhood area, to keep an open mind, actively listen to different perspectives, and to be open to changing our views. This is something I will continue to challenge myself to do. I've said before that I am in support of this scheme, but I want to make it clear that the reasons I'm in support of it is that I want to see an East Bristol where people can walk, wheel and cycle safely, where there is less air pollution and where local businesses can thrive, as these things are what the EBLN has been designed to achieve. If it does not achieve these things, then I'll support finding a different approach. The issue is that at the moment it's too early to tell. The trial scheme is still being installed, and even once it's in, it will take a few months before people have adapted their journeys and we can start to properly see the effects of the scheme. Throughout the trial scheme, the project team will be monitoring its effects, including the levels of traffic and air pollution. But numbers aren't everything, and your feedback on how it's affecting you is vital during this period. I hear the call from this petition to end the trial immediately. What I would say is that if this trial were to end immediately, we'll never know if it would have worked, and all this will be for nothing.
It's not working already. It's not working.
The money from the EBLN comes from a government grant specifically for this project, and we would lose out on that money if we were to halt it now.
Who's got money for that? Are you kidding?
There's no public engagement at this point. Thank you. Please listen to the councillors who are elected to represent you. Thank you. Councillor Finch, please continue.
Thank you. We are in a climate emergency, and transport is a huge source of emissions in Bristol. Also, the population of Bristol is growing. Keeping things as they are is not an option. Doing nothing means more traffic and more air pollution as the population increases. We need to be bold, and we need to try something different. However, that will only work if we as councillors listen to what the people of East Bristol are saying, not just those whose views align with our own individual beliefs, but the whole range of views from the whole range of diverse communities we represent, especially those that are all too often marginalised and underrepresented. We need change, but we need change that works for everyone. That's why I welcome this petition and all the public forum statements we've received today. And that's why I encourage you all to reach out to your councillors with your experiences of the East Bristol Liveable Neighbourhood Scheme. Tell us what's working and tell us what's not working, and give us the details as well. As councillors, I hope we can all promise to listen to your views and feedback with an open mind and find solutions that work for East Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we move to Councillor Tibbett to speak on behalf of the Labour Group, please. Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and petitioners for bringing this here today. I know from the correspondence that I've received from residents in my ward that there are people who largely support the goals of the EBLN but see contradictions in some of the outcomes we are seeing, intended or otherwise. It's important the Council takes this opportunity to get this right. I talk to a lot of people who want to live in safer, cleaner streets, free from motorists who use their roads as cut-throughs to avoid traffic on main roads. These cars often travel at speed and make quiet residential roads hazardous, so I fully support the aims of livable neighbourhoods. However, it's clear that this first pilot scheme has some specific issues which could be avoided. The junction of Blacksworth Road and Church Road, for example, has always been an issue. If one or two cars are turning right, it blocks up all the through traffic across this junction. I've experienced this many times myself. This problem has become exacerbated by the closure of other roads and had severe knock-on consequences. Similarly, my colleague the Councillor for Troopers Hill has long made representations about the dangerous nature of Cruise Hole Road and how this needed to be looked at as part of the livable neighbourhood. So while we do not support the reversal of this scheme, which must be allowed to run for its trial period, we are calling for urgent action to be taken on both of these issues which predate the scheme and should have been taken into account in its design. In discussing the EBLN, we cannot ignore the true elephant in the room, the abysmal nature of Bristol's public transport system. These schemes are particularly successful in London, where they have a reliable network of buses and mass transit. If we want people to take up alternatives to cars, we must provide them. Our privatised bus network clearly won't do this. We need to move to a franchise or municipal system which works for Bristol citizens, not for private profit. And we need a mass transit system that won't grind traffic to a halt. We have seen from the work of the Bus Task and Finish Group that the Council can work collaboratively with the Combined Authority towards delivering better bus provision when the money is available. Although we do not yet know the outcome of the deliberations of that group, providing additional services through the East Bristol Liveable neighbourhood has been one of our priorities. I would also like to reiterate that on a project as ambitious as the Liveable neighbourhood, it's important that people's genuine concerns are listened to. That is not telling people, as certain Green Party councillors have, that their concerns aren't valid, and even that they should move to the countryside where driving a car is supposedly more socially acceptable. Yeah. These comments have been widely shared on social media. I raise this because we want the Liveable neighbourhood to work. Engaging people like that isn't conducive to these aims. So in conclusion, I hope that the Chair of the Transport Committee listens to the genuine concerns which residents have relating to this scheme, especially to the points that I have made earlier. The Council can deliver a scheme that works for everyone. I sincerely hope it does. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Pughes to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Us politicians tend to be confident people, or at least present as such. In order to stand and win elections, we need a good deal of self-belief. So, just to debate in this chamber, to persuade others, we first need to convince ourselves that we are right. But for public engagement, co-design and a pilot project, as this is described, we need to be curious, empathetic and open-minded. We need to accept that we don't have all of the answers and be willing to change our mind. This Council has recently moved from a system that only acknowledged one person's point of view to a collaborative approach that seeks to incorporate multiple perspectives. Those of us that campaigned for that change should ensure that this plurality extends to all the decisions that we make. The East Bristol Liveable neighbourhood pilot project was established by the previous administration, but this current Council needs to take ownership of it. So who wouldn't want to live in a livable neighbourhood? Less through traffic resulting in quieter, less polluted, people-friendly streets. I'm quoting from the project website, which is universally positive in its description of the project and its possible effects. Lots of people have registered positive statements in favour of the project at this meeting, which is an important part of the story. But on the other hand, 760 objections were sent in to the statutory consultation from people concerned that the proposals wouldn't make their lives better. Issues like longer car journeys, lost parking spaces, more traffic on Church Road are understandable concerns, but they don't appear in our public-facing materials. So if we're trying to work with residents, we need to actually talk about the concerns raised through consultation, as well as the benefits to health, active travel and community. We should acknowledge that no change is universally beneficial, and pretending that it is simply discounts those contrary perspectives. That's the kind of attitude that the city threw out in the mayoral referendum 2 years ago. I think it also explains why over 3,500 people were motivated to sign this petition in order to spark this debate today. The petition calls for proper consultation and consideration of the full impact of the scheme, and I can't disagree with that. I hope that the pilot project is a success and residents see real benefits to their health and travel habits. At the end of the pilot project, I want us to look at the data, see what has worked and what hasn't. The timeline on the project website does not currently show an end date for the trial, nor a decision gateway for reviewing the data and deciding whether to implement the scheme permanently. So I think that our commitment to following the evidence would be a lot more credible if we did publish those dates.
Thank you. And now Councillor Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. I thought I was going to be the contrary opinion, but it seems that suddenly, in light of a very large but successful petition, congratulations, that other parties seem to have changed their mind. It's fair to say that the Conservatives have been, through say, more traditionally sceptical of Liveable neighbourhoods, and it's no surprise that as it's trying to be introduced, that we're hearing that now. If Liveable neighbourhoods aren't designed properly, then they will cause mayhem for a large number of people living in those communities. And we're seeing that now, where East Bristol is starting to gridlock up because it's not being put in properly. And what's really concerning for me is that, as other colleagues have said, is when we did the consultation on this, concerns were raised. Yet they seem to have been ignored, not reported. And I did notice the comment on the move to the countryside where cars are more prevalent.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
It's an intriguing view, it has to be said, for a politician to express that to residents. At the moment, East Liveable neighbourhood is not working as I think anyone would say. I know it's in the embryonic stage, it's being installed, all that stuff, but it isn't working. Now, Albert Einstein said it was insanity to basically, paraphrase it, to do the same thing again and again and expect a different result. Now, my fear is if we're not careful, we're going to do the same thing again and again when we look at South Bristol, where everybody else will try and put these in. And the same thing will happen. I'm loving this, by the way. Can you follow me around?
Keep going.
It's so unusual. Start doing it. Insanity is the same again, I hope it's a different result. And if we do this in South Bristol and other places, we have to make sure we're giving voice and listening to those that have genuine concerns. I also think, Albert Einstein would agree with this, insanity to press on with something that isn't working. And at the moment, I believe is working with the communities out there. And even though I'm not a councillor in that area, my inbox is filled with those saying that it's not working. It's affecting people in my ward, in my communities, as they try and go about their lives as well. So I urge us to pause and rethink and pay attention to those voices, even if we don't agree with them. And they are clearly here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plowden, would you like to respond as the relevant policy committee chair to the debate? We've got 3 minutes to do.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who signed the petition and who's today come from East Bristol for engaging in local democracy. I'd like to acknowledge there's a great deal of public concern about this trial, but also a lot of support. I need to say we hear the very real concerns. We hear how hard it is for people to get their kids to school and get to work on time. We hear the anxieties about air quality outside primary schools as children arrive. We hear how businesses are afraid of the fall-off in passing trade. We hear how some people are very anxious indeed about their personal mobility. Cars have given so many people freedom of mobility, but they're causing congestion and increasingly jamming up our city and our economy. We also hear positive stories, like the many people who say they now feel safer to cycle. One of them, a woman in her 40s. That people feel that our roads are safer, especially when taking their kids to school, and how some of them are now walking, not driving. Stories like the cleaner who's rearranged her schedule so she now does all her addresses locally in the same day. We also know that across the country the vast majority of Liveable neighbourhoods have bedded down after initial problems. We know that the bus services in Bristol do not compare with London. We're investing an extra £4.7 million in extra buses with Liveable neighbourhoods as one of the priorities as mentioned by Councillor Tim Rickleton. I want to make sure that everyone here knows that the project has delivered 5 separate letters to every single domestic and commercial address in the area.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
That we are every day monitoring the traffic and adjusting the signals as best we can. But if we do nothing, the 10,000 extra homes, over 20,000 extra jobs in Temple Quarter, right on the border of the trial, along with population growth across the city, mean that we simply overrun the congestion.
Sorry, Councillor Plowden, sorry. Members of the public, can I ask you please to stop interjecting when a councillor is speaking? This is not a public debate, this is a council debate. Please try to keep quiet at this point. Thank you. Councillor Plowden, please continue.
So if we do nothing, we'll be simply overrun with congestion. I want to make sure that everyone knows that this trial contains one of our poorest neighbourhoods, with the lowest rate of car ownership and amongst the poorest area in the city. Science shows that this affects everyone's health. Most worryingly, this includes the development of children's brains and their ability to learn. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that the DFT-compliant appraisal shows a return on investment of £12 for every pound invested in this scheme. So I want everyone here to consider what they can do to help change their own travel behaviour. It doesn't have to be every day. Just a 10% reduction in local trips will make a huge difference. I want everyone to consider how they behave on the roads. Aggressive driving is not something that's just started in recent weeks. And finally, I'd like to remind everyone here that this is a trial and we are ready to make changes. But we need 6 months to do the comprehensive evaluation of the scheme as petitioned. And I will, responding to the comments today, make the evaluation criteria available shortly. To be entirely honest, I and the local councillors are watching with bated breath to see the evidence as to how it is working. We know these sorts of schemes have been controversial up and down the country. We knew that before we started. And despite that, the Green and Labour parties supported this scheme in these elections. And we will remain resolute to stand by that pledge, to keep listening, but also to act on evidence, not emotion, both here and in South Bristol.
Thank you, Councillor Blackman. Thank you very much. So I now ask Council to note the issues raised in the petition, together with the members on the debate at this meeting. This matter will now be referred to the leader and relevant policy committee chair for consideration and to issue a response to the petition organiser. And thank you very much for bringing the petition to full council. That concludes agenda item 8. We will now move on to agenda item 9, statutory review of gambling policy. I'd like to call on Councillor Stephen Williams to move the